Welcome to Mainland Television Regional News. I'm Graham O'Brien, and today's news: labelling for food concerns, time running out for batch owner, and Nelson's top of the whole country. Nelsonians are becoming more aware of the health risks from imported foods, and following the latest Aussie food scare, it would seem they have good reason. Recently, Australia's top Prime Minister Tony Abbott has threatened to toughen up product labelling in the wake of a hepatitis A outbreak after 18 people tested positive from frozen berries imported from China. More than 11,000 school children in Germany were laid low in October 2012 by diarrhoea and vomiting that was linked to frozen strawberries imported from China. The New Zealand government has no plans to follow suit with our regulations. I spoke with Marianne Head, the Senior Policy Analyst for New Zealand Nurses Organisation in Wellington, about the unique problems faced by our health providers from using unknown food sources. Marianne, many Kiwis are concerned about where their food is coming from, but in hospitals and health in general, there's a whole range of other problems. Can you please tell us about what these are from your point of view?
Well, food source is important because different countries have different rates of antimicrobial resistance, and that becomes important when you're thinking about antibiotic resistance, which the World Health Organization has identified as one of the greatest threats to human health, along with food shortages and climate change. So New Zealand has got this low rate of antimicrobial resistance, and other countries have got a very high, other countries that we get food from have got high rates of antimicrobial resistance. Yeah. And there is a danger for food in hospitals, or what we want to make sure is that when we're getting food for patients whose health is already very compromised, that we don't run any risk at all of introducing any more nasties. And it's not just pathogens that we're worried about. I think in the case that was highlighted yesterday with people getting hepatitis A from frozen raspberries from China, and I think we've had other incidents of botulism and etc. Arising from food. But it's also in the use of in other countries, their use of antibiotics, their use of pesticides and things like that can be very, very different from New Zealand, and that has a huge effect on the rate of antimicrobial resistance. So, for instance, antibiotic use in food animals can actually lead to infection, to resistant infections in humans. So it's really important that the food that we're sourcing, that we know, especially in hospitals, that we know where that food is coming from. But more generally, we really want people to be able to make safe and healthy choices, but they can only do that if they have the right information. And we would suggest that, country of origin food labelling was important. But the real risk with and MFAT or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has indicated that, and other research has actually indicated that food labelling generally may be something that is affected by the TPPA, that it might limit the sorts of labels that you can have on food, the introduction of new labels that you could have on food. And that's the real risk with the TPPA, for the potential for it to prevent or deter regulation in the interests of public health. So we've already seen that the government's failed to progress plain packaging legislation for tobacco products because it's waiting to see the outcome of multiple lawsuits instigated by multinational corporations against that sort of legislation in Australia. So, and we know that we've got a lot of health issues coming up that are food-related, and food labelling is a really important issue.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, we're very worried. Should be one of our basic rights to know what we're eating and where it comes from, one would think.
Yes, I think so, and it's really what's going to happen in the future. I mean, I know that the World Health Organization, and there's lots of health practitioners and agronomists and farm researchers, that it's going to take to try to combat this antimicrobial resistance. It's going to take the united efforts of a lot of people and a lot of people from various disciplines. And it just seems that, that this is an extra risk that, that we shouldn't be entering into right at this stage. Or put it differently, that we would like to know what the full risk is. The potential health impacts of the TPPA in New Zealand haven't been publicly quantified or qualified or anything. All that we're able to do is to extrapolate from research and papers presented in other countries and from the little bits of leaked text that we can access, to try to formulate some idea of what we think will be the impact. And that's really not good enough for an agreement of this kind, which has the ability to affect, every part of our lives.
And we spoke to people on the street about their thoughts on country of origin labelling.
How important is it to you to know the country of origin for the food that you buy?
Very important, actually. I'd like to know where it comes from for a couple of reasons. Number one, what kind of practices the people use to grow the food, harvest it, and just how they process it. Some countries process it better, more humane, and they use better methods to grow it, in terms of fertilizers and just processing, and also for fish, where it comes from. North Pacific fish are not a good idea right now. They haven't been for a while.
The only thing that should be changed is the prices, really.
I think it's very important that we should know, especially prefer to have locally sourced food for our eating.
It is important, I believe. I like to know where my food is coming from.
Very important, because I buy fish and clothes and stuff, and I don't like my clothes that know that my clothes are from China, because they can't seem to rip apart easily and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's fairly important, yeah.
Do you feel that the government should have mandatory labeling laws?
I think the government should encourage mandatory labeling, and the companies that provide the proper labels should be encouraged to do business here.
Well, I think it would be good if they did. See, it's good to be able to make that choice and make it quickly as well.
Do you realize that under the TPPA agreement, all countries that join may have to stop country of origin labeling?
No, they should be able to put their own country of origin on as well. That's important for them and important for us to know where it all comes from. I would prefer to know where it comes from, if I can. I mean, I always look to see if it's local food or where it does come from, which is always better, I think.
I think that would be a backward step, yeah. Or in your case, you don't even have that step yet in New Zealand.
It's been a long hot summer and businesses around the area appear to have a good run, with Nelson topping the retail spend at over 8%. And they're probably hoping that it can continue through the autumn into winter. Chrissy Small spoke to Kathy Madigan of Uniquely Nelson about the summer's Paymark figures.
Okay, I'm here with Kathy Madigan at the wonderful Morrison Street Cafe. Now I'm catching up with Kathy over, well, just how good things have been for the area, the region, the city over the summer season and what could be coming up. Kathy, tell me, how has it been going?
Well, here we are sitting in Morrison Street Cafe right next to Hardy Street, and as we all know, what a great destination this has become. All these new eateries have opened, we've got new bars and cafes, great options, and then not only that, we've got late night on Hardy every Thursday, the last Thursday of every month as well. So it's really a sign of the vibrancy and the renewal, I guess, of the city, and how boutique offerings, and people love that experience of not just shopping but cafes and dining as well. And look, we've got markets, we've got the farmers market here on a Wednesday, we've got the Saturday market as well. So the city has so much to offer year round, and while the weather's like this and it's beautiful, get out and enjoy it.
Yeah. So honestly, we've really got a humming little economy here.
We have. The Paymark data is just sensational. 4 months in a row, Nelson has topped the Paymark data in terms of growth, economic growth. So that's beating everywhere else in New Zealand. So, and you can only see from the tourists here as well that they're injecting, more dollars into our economy. It's a great season for tourism, and as long as the summer lasts, I think, things will be good for us.
Right. Now, okay, we've got the summertime here, but, things kind of die down kind of mid-April really, don't they?
We are seasonal, but on the other hand, I think the paymark data is very indicative that there is a general trend of recovery underway, and that will carry us on through winter as well. It's not just about tourists, it's about the locals and them opening their wallets. They want to go out, they want to dine out, they're buying new things for their homes, they're buying new cars, and they're out buying discretionary spend as well, which is, with the retailers and the fashion and things like that. So winter fashions are arriving in store pretty much, over the next few weeks. So I would imagine that will give us an added boost as well.
Yeah. And of course, the area is still beautiful, so throughout the winter it's going to attract the outdoorsy winter types anyway.
Well, that's right. How lucky are we? Here we are sitting here in summer, but you could equally be sitting here in July enjoying a coffee outside, and it's a beautiful sunny day.
Yeah. We are blessed, aren't we?
We're very lucky, yeah, and I think that really helps with the fact that the city is an outdoor, it's streets and tree lined, and that's what people enjoy about it, watching the world go by.
Not to mention the friendly faces.
Aren't we lucky? That's right, people know each other. You go into your favourite cafe and you know the staff there, and that's what makes Nelson such a great little place.
Kathy Madigan, Uniquely Nelson, thank you very much for your time.
Cheers.
Nelson continues to be a popular place for tourists to visit, and with a lack of public transport to outer regions around Nelson and Tasman, many are left with little choice but to hire a vehicle. With the road toll climbing and foreign driving accounting for some of the accidents involved, we went along to speak to some local car hire companies issues of road safety when hiring vehicles to overseas drivers. Only one company out of 7 approached would speak to us.
I'm speaking today with Sue from Omega Rental Cars. Sue, what can you tell us about your opinion of the recent increase in crashes by foreign drivers?
My own personal opinion, I think there are some people that are coming into our country with limited open road driving experience, and that's what's clearly happening, is people are having accidents because they don't know how to drive.
Do you hire cars and vans out to foreigners?
Yes, we do, on a regular basis, particularly at this time of year.
What do you tell them about driving on New Zealand roads?
One of the things that I tell them is to stay left, but when I say stay left, I mean I explain to them to be within the lanes as opposed to off the road, and also to stick to the speed limit or a little bit under it so that they're comfortable with what's going on around them.
Is there anything you hand out about this to these car renters?
Generally speaking, we've got some information for the Chinese. Apart from that, it's just the AA information on roads and what's out there.
Great. Have you had many cars driven by foreigners involved in crashes?
And this branch in particular, not a huge amount, no.
In these instances, was it the foreign drivers at fault?
Yes.
Okay. Have the increases in accidents meant insurances are now higher for you?
Definitely our insurances have increased. Whether that's a direct result of that, I'm not 100% sure.
Thanks very much for your time today.
Nelson has played host for 2 out of the 3 ICC matches, and this week will be the last opportunity for Nelson and Tasman people to enjoy the thrill of what a live international match is really like. Scotland versus Bangladesh in the last of this ICC tournament on this Thursday the 5th at Saxton Field, which should be a cliffhanger as it is crunch time for Bangladesh. Last month, Tasman District Councillors voted by 9 votes to 4 to have removed what could be considered an historical landmark batch in Tapu Bay. The batch, which sits on an Esplanade Reserve, has been in the Kramer family since 1899, and now 82-year-old John Kramer has been told that his Kiwi Crib, which he has personally owned for the past 30 years, now has 3 months before it has to be removed, lock, stock and barrel by John himself. John had offered to council to leave money in a trust to cover the cost of removal upon his death. The batch had been moved in the 1930s only a short distance to where it sits today, sitting on a small headland which in 1984 was designated part of a wider council Esplanade Reserve. Recently, 6 members of the Nelson Residents Association took a trip to the Motueka Marae to collect John Kramer and see it for themselves. They, along with many, feel that this batch is not an eyesore and should be left in place, and would be an emotional hardship on John to have to see his family's crib destroyed. Similar batches have been left by other councils around New Zealand as historic sites, and this one can be seen, if anything, to be a picturesque and quaint reminder of a bygone era.
John Kramer, now there's been a little bit of publicity about you lately, and we're very aware that your family batch is now under the hammer.
Yeah.
Now look, you've had the Mayor, Richard Kempthorne, he's been very keen to be on your side, but unfortunately that hasn't been enough, has it, to save your batch?
Well, it would seem so, but I can always seek redress through the court.
Right, and will you be doing
That's
so?
what it's there for.
Yeah, and is this a place that you're going to go to as far as going through the court system?
I've got to get redress. If I think I've been done an injustice, and I think I have, that's where I'll be going.
Okay. That could be a rather expensive avenue to take.
No, not really. Not really, because if, that's what the court's set up for. I don't need a lawyer or anything. I'm going to tell the truth.
Great.
So, I'm quite capable of defending myself. See, there's a misconception about courts about being expensive, but really they're not.
Okay, so they've really given you no information about why it should come down.
Well, yes. The only thing they've said is that they reckon they were setting a precedent. Well, they should be setting a precedent. The precedent they should be setting is saying, look, if we should have an example somewhere of what was done 100 years ago. But they obviously don't treasure history.
Well, that's right, and unfortunately it seems that your family's batch has become caught up in a bureaucratic changeover, and you're paying the price for that.
Well, yeah, but I'm not going to pay. Yeah, because I'm not going, because I'll
You'll fight them.
I'll be extremely surprised. I know you accuse me of prejudging or determining what the outcome will be, but I'll be very surprised if the court doesn't come out in my favour.
Right. Now, John, I believe you've got quite a few people out there in the community supporting you at the moment.
Oh yes, they're ringing me from Auckland. I get Invercargill. I've had calls from all over New Zealand.
Well, you're getting rather famous, aren't you?
Yeah, well, and I'll have to say, one of the enjoyments I get out of in my latter life is actually going down in the batch and spending an evening down there and having the salt air blowing through the windows, whatever. But the real enjoyment I get out of was with my great-grandchildren. And they love going and having a weekend with Grandpa when they come up from Christchurch or wherever, and we just love being in the batch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of the pleasures.
Well, it must be a real.
As I said, it doesn't matter. It's not the Taj Mahal.
No.
But it might as well be, because as far as the little fellas, little children are concerned, they think it's the greatest, the best building in Tapu Bay.
Of course, and there's nothing like creating those memories, is there, John?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, John, look, we wish you all the best for your court case. We certainly will be watching with interest, and it'll be great to catch up with you once it's all over, and hopefully you get the outcome that you desire.
All right, dear.
Thank you very much, John.
After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.